we pointed out earlier that Andrew won't be at Sandringham for Christmas. Do we think that was the right decision? And do we know why Andrew decided, how this decision was made? Was Andrew forced to do it, do we think, or did he do the right thing, as we're saying, and decide to step back?
Well, I think it was pretty telling that we found out, a week or so before the event itself that he wasn't going to be attending, because if we had no confirmation either way, this story would have really dragged on and everyone would be talking about on Christmas morning, is Andrew going to turn up for this Sandringham walk on Christmas Day? We were told by a source that he and the Duchess of York would not be attending Sandringham Christmas. We were also told that the two daughters, Eugenie and Beatrice...
It's a York boycott, really, isn't
well,
it?
yeah, but Eugenie and Beatrice had already, before this scandal broke, said that they weren't going to be attending the Sandringham Christmas. They're spending it with their respective in-laws. Maybe Fergie had a part to play on this. I'm just speculating here, but as I said earlier, I think... Fergie may well have been the king's trump card in all of this. Having one foot in the real world perhaps makes her see sense and realising how publicly damaging this could be for the firm. So if she just spends a quiet Christmas with Andrew away from the public spotlight, perhaps that's in the best interest. Then maybe if the scandal settles down next year, although it sounds like it's not going to, then he can go to the Christmas Sandringham next year.
Andrew was shaking his head there.
I don't think he's going to go to Sandringham ever again.
Really?
Do you think I mean, there was this debate about whether we'll ever see him in public again. We don't really see him in public. We see him at family events, as you pointed out, Christmas and the King Constantine Memorial. Do you think we will ever see him attend public events again with the family, like a Sandringham or at least a service?
Well, my own feeling is they need to distance himself from him. I mean, clearly when Beatrice got married, it was done very quietly. There were no pictures released of him at the wedding. And I think that's what they need to do. I mean, there's rumours that he may go to the Middle East, which I think actually have some validity, and divide his time between the Middle East and here. He needs to get out of view so people totally forget about him.
But he kind of likes the limelight. In
That's
many ways. We have so many pictures of him, riding his horse, looking happy, driving out of Royal Lodge, almost waving at the photographers. I don't think he wants to go away. You mentioned there about potentially going to the Middle East. I know that he's left the UK once, my understanding, since the Newsnight interview, and that was to go to Bahrain, because he does have Middle East links. Is that the answer, that he gets banished to the Middle East and be forgotten about?
Well, he was given a house in Abu Dhabi, so I mean he has places to go. He's friendly with members of the royal family there. He can play golf. The weather's a lot better. His daughters, if you notice, are spending a lot more time in the Middle East. There's an interesting story there about the daughters' involvement in the Middle East and what they're doing. So, that would be the clever thing. But as you say, he likes, in some ways, this attention. He's so thick-skinned, he doesn't seem to realise that this is terrible optics. I don't think he cares about embarrassing the rest of the royal family.
Well, I assumed following the Newsnight interview and him being stripped of all his titles that we would never see him in public again. And yet, 6 months later or so, when the scandal had kind of settled down a little bit, we did see him at these family events. But I think if he was going to go to the Middle East, what would draw him back would be his grandchildren, Beatrice and Eugenie's children. But perhaps they can just go out to the Middle East and see him instead, if that's going to happen.
The last couple of months or the last couple of years, we have been assured that, he remains the King's brother. There has been a lot of talk about them not being close, but he is still his brother, and he still has to kind of look after Andrew in certain ways, doesn't he, I think. But there we go. So moving on from one banished or one scandal hit royal onto some other outcasts, Harry and Meghan, they've released a Christmas card. I think there's 6 or 8 photographs on this card. Six. To tell the story of the year. There's pictures of the children as well from behind. What do we make of the Sussex Christmas card?
Well, the first thing I noticed was the words at the top, which was on behalf of the office of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and Meghan, which was very odd phrasing to me. It didn't seem very personable. It didn't seem like it was from Harry and Meghan themselves. It sounds to me that somebody in their office thought, oh, maybe it's a good idea to send their Christmas card. I see what they were trying to do. The 6 photographs were kind of almost like a review of the year. There was one from their Nigeria visit. There was one from their Colombia visit, one of Meghan hugging children, one of Harry hugging somebody in a hospital bed as well, and then the one which perhaps has been talked about the most, the 2 of them with their 2 children from behind. And that shows that, I think it emphasises that they aren't doing things perhaps the complete royal family way, because unlike William and Catherine's children, we see them at regular intervals each year, whereas I think the last official photograph of Lilibet, for example, was on her first birthday in 2022.
Well, they are kind of following royal protocol in many ways. I mean, it was something that they wanted to leave behind, but we've had 2 tours this year, and then we've had a family Christmas card. Who else does that? It's the King and Queen, William and Catherine, and the Sussexes. We don't have Sarah Ferguson and Duke of York putting out a Christmas card, but you know,
Well,
I thought
they
really
used to.
Did they? Exactly. Well, I thought they'd left this kind of royal protocol behind, but seemingly not.
Well, I was speaking to Kinsey Schofield, the royal podcaster, recently, and she suspected, and I perhaps can see this could have some legitimacy, that whatever PR advice Harry and Meghan have got, they have said to them, you need to keep some kind of royal link, because that is what gives you importance. Because otherwise, what have you got? You've just got somebody doing a cookery show or having a lifestyle brand like everybody else has in Hollywood. Whereas with Prince Harry and his links as being still 6th in line to the throne or 5th in line to the throne, whatever he is, he's got the Invictus Games. They're doing these quasi-royal tours, as some are dubbing it, which does give them some kind of status. And you saw the treatment they got in Colombia, for example, with a security detail provided by the Colombian government, all the cameras, all the crowds that were put there, all the engagements which were added. It alluded to their previous royal roles and gives them status.
It's exactly what happened with the Duke of Windsor when he went off to Germany in 1937. You know, he was allowed to be played by the Germans as a propaganda tool, basically. And I think that they're doing exactly the same thing. They're useful idiots.
Sorry, we're not comparing, the Duke of Windsor with Prince Harry. I mean, he was cozying up to Nazi Germany.
But it's a way of bigging yourself up in some ways, you know, giving the appearance of a royal visit. I'm not suggesting that there's an equation in terms of views, but the foolishness of being played by other people to make you look more important than you probably are.
I think what Harry and Meghan did this year, particularly with their parents' network, trying to get a group of parents together to support each other whose children have been harmed by social media and online use, is one of Harry's kind of passions, and it's another kind of charity project that he's really been involved with. And what I've noticed recently is this kind of separation, professional separation of Harry and Meghan. So Harry, for example, is focusing very much on his Invictus Games. He's focusing on this online social media use, whereas Meghan, with American Riviera Orchard, her lifestyle brand, we haven't seen much about it. And Meghan occasionally pops up at odd charity engagements in Los Angeles. Harry was in New York recently. Meghan was the other side of the country doing something in LA. And it's not that brand Sussex, which we were led to believe would happen when they stood back as working members in 2020. And we saw separate images of them on this Christmas card too.
But in some ways, I suppose she can get away with commercial exploitation in a way that he can't. But you think in some ways they're separating both professionally and personally. And this may be the beginnings of something else that's happening. I mean, maybe the door is being left open for Harry to come back to Britain.